Have you ever prayed with all your heart, cried, begged, whispered through clenched teeth, and still nothing happened? The pain didn't lift. The storm didn't pass. You were still sick. The relationship still ended. The job still didn't come. And worst of all, you couldn't feel him. Not his comfort. Not his voice. Not even the faintest trace of his presence. That's when the questions started creeping in, didn't they? God, are you ignoring me? Is my faith not enough? If you really loved me, wouldn't you have rescued me by now? It's hard to admit, but I know that quiet ache, the one that grows in the space between what you hoped for and what actually happened. That ache of disappointment with God. Not because you stopped believing, but because you believed so deeply and still didn't see the breakthrough. I remember walking through a season like that. I prayed with expectation. I pleaded with tears. I did everything I knew to do, surrendered, trusted, waited. And yet, nothing shifted. And in that silence, I didn't just feel discouraged. I felt forgotten. But slowly, gently, something unexpected began to unfold. Not through a miracle, not through a dramatic change, just awareness. A subtle realization that maybe, just maybe, I was looking for the wrong thing. I had been asking for a rescue, but God had already shown up with something different. He had come to be with me. Not to take the fire away, but to stand in it with me. Not to end the valley, but to walk it, step by step, by my side. You see, we expect love to come as a rescue. But often, true love shows up as presence. And sometimes the reason we miss God is because He doesn't enter the scene with flashing signs or sudden answers. He enters quietly, steadily, as someone willing to stay. I realized God hadn't abandoned me. He just didn't look like the solution I was hoping for, and that broke something open in me, a deeper kind of faith, a softer kind of surrender. If you're feeling that today, if your heart is tired of praying and your soul is aching for rescue, I want to tell you something tender and true. God may not have changed your situation, but He's already come. And maybe, just maybe, His presence was the answer all along. Her name was Elena, and by all appearances she had it all together. A devoted mother, a loving wife, a woman of quiet but steady faith. She served at her church, led Bible study for young women, packed lunches with little notes of encouragement for her kids every morning. She prayed, not just for herself, but for others, with a heart that truly believed in God's goodness. But everything changed the day her husband walked out. No warning, no final conversation. Just a silence where his voice used to be. And in that silence, Elena began to unravel. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Not at first. Instead, she kept showing up, kept praying, kept believing that God would bring him back, that the family she built wouldn't just collapse into ashes overnight. Night after night she knelt by her bed whispering the same words. God, restore what was broken. Fix this, please. But weeks turned into months, and her husband never returned. Instead, she received divorce papers in the mail with no explanation, just a signature. That night she didn't pray. She couldn't. The words felt like sand in her mouth. She lay on the floor of her bedroom, staring at the ceiling in a kind of quiet agony, asking herself if all those years of faith had meant anything at all. Her children were asleep in the next room, and she felt more alone than she had in her entire life. Not because she had lost her husband, but because she couldn't feel God anymore. She didn't need a perfect outcome. She just wanted to know she wasn't abandoned. That's when, in the silence, something happened. Not a voice, not a vision. Just this strange, steady weight on her chest. not heavy like grief, but grounding like presence. It wasn't comfort in the way she expected. It was more like a knowing, like something inside her whispered without words, "I am here." She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just let the silence stretch out, long and still and sacred. And in that silence, she began to weep. Not from despair this time, but from something softer, something like surrender. It wasn't the miracle she had prayed for. Her husband didn't change his mind. Her home was still broken. But something inside her had shifted. The need for a rescue had faded, and in its place came a deeper hunger, not to be delivered, but to be accompanied. From that day forward, Elena's prayers changed. They weren't desperate pleas anymore. They were quiet invitations. "Sit with me, Lord. I don't need you to fix everything today. Just don't leave me alone in this." And he never did. Years later, she would tell other women about that night. Not the night her husband left, but the night she finally understood what it meant for God to be near. She still had hard days, still cried sometimes when no one was looking. But she no longer waited for rescue to define her healing. Instead, she looked for presence, and she always found it. In the quiet moments, in the slow mornings, in the ache that somehow wasn't so sharp anymore. Her story didn't have the ending she once begged God for, but it had something better, the awareness that he had never left, not even for a moment. "My child, I saw you that night, when the room was quiet and your tears wouldn't stop. When the prayer left your lips, but you felt like no one was listening. I was there, not above you, watching from a distance, but beside you, close enough to hear the breath between your sobs. I didn't answer the way you expected. I didn't come with thunder or healing in an instant. I didn't reverse the decision, change the diagnosis, or pull you out of the pain. But I came, and I never left. I didn't abandon you in the fire. I walked into it with you. I didn't take away the weight, but I held you under it. You were looking for a rescue, but I gave you my presence, because what your heart needed most was not escape. It was to be seen, known, and loved exactly where you were. I know it's hard to understand. I know you thought love looked like intervention, but my love goes deeper than circumstances. It anchors you when nothing else can. Even when the surface is chaos, I am the stillness underneath it all. You thought I was late, but I was right there in the middle of the waiting. You thought I was silent, but I was speaking in the stillness. You thought I had forgotten you, but I was memorizing every word you whispered. You don't need to strive for my attention. I already gave you all of it. I don't measure your prayers by volume or eloquence. I look at the ache behind your words, and I call it holy. I don't love you more when you feel strong, or less when you feel numb. My love isn't a reward for doing well. It's a covering for when you're falling apart. I never asked you to be okay before you come to me. I never asked you to have answers. I just asked you to come. I see your heart, the questions you're afraid to ask, the fears you bury under faith-filled phrases, the quiet guilt that maybe you're not spiritual enough. Let me tell you this. Your emptiness does not disqualify you. Your doubts don't scare me. I already know them. I've held them in my hands and I still choose you. I still call you beloved. I still sit with you in every unanswered moment. I am not disappointed in your silence. I'm waiting in it. I know you asked me to fix it, but instead, I chose to be with you in it. Because sometimes, the greatest miracle is not the mountain moving. It's your heart learning to stand still and trust that I'm still God, even when nothing else makes sense. I'm forming something in you that can't be rushed. A deeper faith, a steadier peace, a kind of hope that doesn't crumble when circumstances do. And one day, you'll look back and see that I was answering all along. Not with outcomes, but with nearness. Not with rescue, but with my presence. And that presence, it's never leaving. Maybe the miracle was never supposed to be in the fixing, but in the staying. Maybe the answer to your prayer wasn't that the storm would stop, but that you would learn how to breathe in the middle of it. What if we've misunderstood what it means to be rescued? We picture God sweeping in like a hero to carry us out of the fire, but more often, he walks in and sits down beside us, not saying much, just being there. And somehow that's enough. Somehow presence is more healing than escape. Because rescue can change your situation, but presence changes you. And once you've been changed, once you've learned to recognize him in the quiet, in the ache, in the seemingly unanswered places, you start to see that nothing was wasted. Not the waiting, not the weeping, not even the silence. You begin to look back and realize he was always there. When you thought you were talking to the ceiling, when you lay on the bathroom floor too tired to get up, when you walked into a church hoping for a sign but got only stillness. That stillness was sacred. That stillness was him. And the deeper truth is, God doesn't only show up when he changes the outcome. He shows up in how he changes you while you're still in it. So many of us have been waiting for breakthrough, waiting for the pain to end, waiting for the situation to shift, and it may one day. But even if it doesn't, that doesn't mean God failed. It may mean that he's inviting you to live differently inside the storm. To walk with a deeper steadiness, a peace that doesn't make sense, a kind of hope that can't be shaken by outcomes. You begin to hope not just for better circumstances, but for a stronger heart. Not just for answers, but for wisdom. Not just for escape, but for endurance. And that kind of hope doesn't disappoint. It holds you upright when nothing else does. It teaches you that you're never alone, even in your darkest valleys. And eventually, maybe slowly, maybe in tiny moments, you start to feel it. Not everything is fixed, but something is being rebuilt inside you. A deeper trust, a quieter strength, a softer spirit. And when others ask you how you made it through, you won't tell them about a dramatic rescue. You'll tell them about a presence, a God who stayed, a Savior who walked with you when no one else could. And that story, that's the one that changes lives. So now I want to ask you, gently, not with pressure, but with love. What if the rescue you were waiting for was never the real promise? What if the gift was always his presence? Can you pause for a moment right now and let go of the outcome you've been holding on to so tightly? Can you sit in this quiet space, not to demand answers, but to recognize the one who never left? I know you've waited. I know you've wept. I know you've looked for God to come crashing in with deliverance. But maybe what you needed most was someone who would simply stay. Someone who wouldn't be scared off by your pain. Someone who wouldn't walk away when the answers didn't come fast enough. That someone has been here all along. And now the question is no longer, will he show up? The question is, will I let him stay? Will I stop trying to force a way out and instead surrender to the peace of being seen, known, and loved in the middle of it all? Will I believe that even in the silence, he is still speaking love over me? Will I allow this waiting, this breaking, this not yet, become holy ground? If that's you, if your soul feels tender and tired, then pray with me. Not for a solution, but for a deeper connection. Lord, I've spent so long asking you to fix this, to change my circumstances, to take the pain away, and maybe one day you will. But for now, what I need most is you. Just you. I choose to stop running. I choose to let go of needing rescue to believe you're near. I open the door to your presence, even if it comes quietly, even if it doesn't look the way I hoped. Sit with me in this moment, Lord. Teach me to see you here. Take a deep breath, beloved. You are not alone. You never were. And now that you know he's been here all along, you no longer have to wait for the rescue.